Family, we're here. We just recorded the show and it didn't record. Anyways, I had to put the phone on flight mode because I can't have nobody disturbing this very important conversation. It's the one and only Mr. Orin from Bugz in the Attic, legend in the game. The group, the man, the band has inspired not only me, but many who would dare to actually be honest about it. And actually, there's nothing not to be honest about because it is an absolute honor for me to be sitting with such a legend who has helped shape with his music, with their music, my own sound, alongside the likes of Kenny Dope, Louis Vega, Chez Damier, Ron Trent. For those of you who think that Afrohouse came from the ethereal, it didn't. These people paved the way for guys like myself and many others. So it's an honor to sit with you.
No, you're too kind, man.
and yeah, so, well, I'm going to make you repeat yourself, but I guess now we might structure a little bit better the conversation so we don't waste too much of your time because we literally spent freaking 30 minutes talking about some good stuff.
All good, all good. But what's up, peeps?
We were talking about, well, okay, you know what? Let's start from the end and go back to the beginning. You spent some time in South America.
In Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
People always get that confused.
So it's the Caribbean.
Yeah,
no,
it's
exactly.
Caribbean, West Indies. Yeah,
the West Indies. So, what was that experience for you, and what led you to go to that part of the world?
It was
if it's not too.
No. It was by accident actually. We got invited to the Miami Winter Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And we went along with Digo and Charlie Dark, I think back in 1999.
Wow. Okay.
And we did a rooftop party. We did one party there, and then the following year we went and did a rooftop party with some guys from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Who were sort of following the broken beat scene. And one of the guys, the main guy, Chucky, he came over. He was studying in London, the Sounds College, and they invited us back to go to Puerto Rico with them. So we went straight back after the Miami Winter Conference and actually landed on the Tuesday night, which is the first Tuesday of every month is Galleria Night, which is a carnival. They have like a mini carnival and all across San Juan. And it was absolutely amazing. We were completely overwhelmed and I ended up staying there 3 months.
Wow. Wow.
So that's just to show how overwhelming it was. But just sort of seeing salsa being played live and then sort of discovering like the last sort of 15 years of my DJ life.
Yes.
I've been going out sort of hunting through records and digging the crates for obscure samples away, Kenny Dope and Dillerwood. You go and look for a rare sample you can take and mash up.
Absolutely.
It dawned on me then when I first learned that, most of the samples that I always used to go and look for, back then, me and Phil actually used to call it Latin music, but we was actually hunting down rumba. Yes. We didn't realise that, that all of the percussion samples that we was going for was rumba, and I didn't realise there was a sound called rumba until I'd gone to Puerto Rico and learnt the difference between bomba, plena, rumba, salsa.
Oh,
and then you learn the history and things and how it sort of it even shaped like the disco movement. When the whole dollar thing and the economy sort of fell in the 40s and 50s in Puerto Rico, loads left to go to Miami and New York.
Mm-hmm.
And just culturally, a lot of people in Puerto Rico learn a lot of the traditional salsa songs and plena and bomba songs. They learn the percussion. So a lot of them went over there in the 50s and 60s. And then around the 70s, you had this disco explosion, and you find that a lot of the percussionists on there were just playing salsa.
Exactly.
They're playing salsa at 120 BPM.
Wow.
And then that became like the South Soul sort of sound.
Yes.
So all these sort of things. It's like, so while I was working over there, we were already sort of making broken beat, but it sort of fitted so well with rumba percussion. It fitted really well with bomba and plena. So we could build broken beat tracks around that. So that ended up sort of being like a turn from a 3-month excursion into a 3-year excursion where we set up the label and the studio over there with Pablo Rodriguez and Chucky and Emilio and them guys. So I ended up doing 3 years.
Big things.
Yeah, big things.
Wow. And when you're looking now further back in time, how would you say the broken beat sound really came to be? And did you guys know what you guys were doing at the time, or was it just all a bunch of homies just coming together, meeting each other, and just vibing, and then
It's a bit of
coming
both,
with
really.
yeah?
I mean, me personally speaking, I always wanted to build a collective based on. So when I got into music from when I was about 18, 19, right at the beginning of the acid house explosion in the UK. And when I got into making music, I just by chance I ended up sort of working at Dollis Hill where the Four Hero guys were, and they had a massive community. It was like an old house that had been converted into multiple studios.
Yeah.
And so there was like, Four Hero, Noel Ram, Future Sound of London. There's a whole bunch of guys, a whole crew of guys there. And every day you go there, there'd be about 30, 40 people there. So it was really inspirational because you've got all these different sounds coming from all these different rooms. And there's a collective family sort of spirit there, sort of thing. And people could bounce ideas off each other, push each other, sort of thing. So collectively, I was always quite inspirational to me. And then around sort of 93, I was always into house music. And around 93, the Nervous track, Masters at Work, they brought out their song from the New Recon Soul album. And the minute that track came out, to me, it sort of stood out above all the other house tracks. And I wanted to make sort of house music like that. Around the sort of same time, I sort of met Seiji, Alex Funzi, and G-Force. And I wanted to sort of try and combine what they were doing with the drum and bass with that and try and combine it with house. So I was trying to sort of do, I guess, sort of drum and bass at house sort of tempo.
I see.
And so we're working with breaks, trying to program house music with breaks.
Yes.
So it ended up sort of coming out like that sort of sound. And by the time we sort of met Kaidi about a year later, sort of around 96 or so, it became a little bit more organic, where we were trying to sort of recreate some of the sort of 70s jazz and funk sort of stuff.
Because Kaidi's background is more of the jazz.
Yeah. So, Kaidi sort of grew up as a classical flautist playing flute, and then he sort of taught himself everything else, but first piano.
Yeah.
Essentially. And he'd sort of like, he's into like a Grover Washington or a George Duke album, and then he just learn it. He'd emulate it. And so by the time we sort of met him, he'd play us all these mad breaks and tracks that he said, and then we'd take sort of take drum breaks from that, take samples from that, chop that up, split that up, put that on the MPC, the SP1200 or the EMU sample, and then just program away, and and then it sort of grew sort of organically.
Yes, sir. Who coined the name Broken Beat?
Phil Asher.
Peace.
So again, going back to Kenny Dope and Nervous track. So back in sort of like 92, 93, maybe I think probably about 92, Kenny Dope and Louis Vega would sort of do this sort of thing like, Kenny had this unique way of programming house. I always think because he comes from hip hop, and so his style of programming, his style of production, is quite unique because he's using like a hip hop methodology, sort of like what I was going to say.
No, you're talking about the methodology, Kenny Dope's methodology, and the whole birth of the name Broken Beat being coined.
Oh yeah, the Broken Beat. Sorry. Yeah. And so what they do is at the end of like an 8-bar or 16-bar sequence, Kenny would put like a little fill, and he just moved the kick by 16th. So now it's like it's pushing or pulling.
Next level, man.
And create that little space.
I know, man.
And Phil would call it, he goes, that little broken bit where it just goes a little bit broken? He goes, like to do that. And so that's the first time we'd hear like the word broken beat, and what Phil was referring to was just basically a drum fill, but just Kenny just spacing it out at 16. And then what happened was Phil and Luke a couple of times tried where they'd done this little 1 bar or 2 bar little fill, well, they'll take that and make a track out of it. And so it was like at the same time when Louis Vega had just done this remix for who was it? It's a track called Just Listen. It was Louis Vega's tribal dub. Forget the name who it was now. It'll come to me in a sec. But he done this sort of broken house sort of thing. And then about 6 months later, the Nervous track came out, and then about 5 or 6 months after that, they used the drums from that for the Jamiroquai remix they did of Emergency on Planet Earth. So straight away for me, there was like 3 odd house tracks that came out that stood out completely, head and shoulders above every other house track that I'd heard that was around that sort of time. And to me, I wanted to recreate stuff like that, house music like that. That ended up becoming this word broken beat because Phil,
coined it.
He hadn't coined it was him who sort of coined the phrase, but it didn't sort of take hold until probably about 5 or 6 years later when people were trying to explain our music and Phil was explaining something, and then that word just sort of stuck and our music became known as broken beat music.
Wow.
We all hated it at the time.
I bet, but what a very good name for it, man. Because as much as it might sound a bit, the word broken is connected, but it really, for me, honestly, like when I fell in love with the sound, and I just fell in love with the complexity, and as you just said, like how Kenny, for example, would just Kenny, because you guys did the same thing, because the way you
Seiji was the master of it. He was the way he would, like I was saying, when by the time I'd met Seiji, Alex, and Mark, they would take drum breaks, and where we'd take just like a loop, we used to take loops and things like from like I said, from South. They'd take that same loop, but they'd break it down into I break it down into 2 parts, like the kick, hi-hat, and the click, the hit. They take the kick, the 2 hi-hats, the open hat, then the hit, then the open hat, then the little fill, then the little grace note.
Bear in mind, the AI technology didn't exist at the time.
It's all
handmade.
This was
artisanal work.
And then by the time they're putting that through the filters and all this sort of stuff and messing around, doing completely different stuff that we could do on a drum machine, what they were doing on the samplers with that, same thing. Like, Seiji could take just like the kick drum and the hi-hat, and then he'd make a drum kit out of that. He'd even make the snares out of that just by using the filters. Get 16 different sounds
from one
sound, and it used to freak me out. So just things like that, and then sort of taking that and then applying that to the drum machine, and then going forward from there. So again, it grew from that. And with Broken Beat, I came from house. Phil came from house. You had Seiji who came from drum and bass and house. You've got Kylie who came from jazz and funk. Daz who came from R&B, hip hop, funk. So there was very different kind of and then you've got people like you had Domu and Mark, Mac, Digo, them guys. There's a whole
spectrum of an arsenal indeed.
Of musicians and ideas and inspirations.
So when you guys have done what you've done and the contribution you've brought forth with the sound and the music, when you listen to what's being done nowadays, I'll give an example with Afro House, for example. Are you impressed, or do you feel like something new has been brought to the game, something refreshing, or do you feel like it's a bit more of the same? What is your take on, for example, sounds like Afro House, Amapiano, 3-steps?
I love it. It's an evolution of music. It's progressive, that's what I love about it. The drum programming to me is, we're cousins.
Yes.
The Afro. I mean, even like I was saying about the rumba. Rumba is Afro-Cuban, Afro-Latin. Anyway, so it's like it's just a connection, an extension, an evolution.
Yes, sir.
And so when I listen to like Afro House now, I hear it, and to me it's the next. It's the evolution of Broken Beat, essentially, from my perspective, where I come from the house world, because my introduction to Broken Beat is through house, and a lot of my stuff lends more towards house sound than, you know, as opposed to someone like Seiji or IG. Yeah, and like, you know, when I listen to Afrobeat, this when I try to recreate, or when I'm making broken beat, essentially what I'm trying to do is recreate what a jazz drummer would do when they were playing, and they're not, you know, it'll still be in a 4/4 structure, but the syncopation, I want to try and place the notes the way a jazz drummer would, and create a rhythm out of that. And when I listen to Afro House, it's exactly the same thing. And you know, I've even just heard about this new 3-step thing, which blew me away.
It is very interesting.
And essentially, you know, it's polyrhythms and rhythm is essentially it's this rhythm.
Thank you, sir. I agree.
And for me, the intriguing thing about it, because I don't know it, and I want to know it, I want to know how to program and learn this style, and then try and apply that to incorporate that in the broken beat somehow. Like, to me, they marry perfectly. Apart from my one critique is the general sound, the musical sounds of
currently being overly played, I believe.
I go for a certain sound of the stuff that I play, which is a bit more organic as to the synthetic sound. I love the synthetic drums, but the music, I need the old school organics, if you like.
So you'd say that more synthetic sort of like Euro synths.
Yeah, the Euro techie sound, it's not working for me. If it was like more of a Detroit sort of tech sound, that would work for me. Yeah.
Master King,
how you doing, brother?
Wicked. I
hear that.
Training a lot. To go.
Look at
Go
you,
get it,
look
go
at you
get it.
showing off,
Yeah.
showing off. Stop that nonsense. So you said that synthetic sound, even though I do like the synths and stuff, but I there's a gimmickiness about it that's becoming a bit annoying, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose, I mean, the fact that it's so wide appealing now to a wider audience. It's one of the biggest sounds in the world at the moment.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
So obviously you're going to have that, and I think some of it is tending towards that. But you know, me personally, I go for the more underground, organic.
Yes, sir.
Not necessarily smooth. I like it edgy. I just find the general sound is a bit too.
But I think even that approach and what you're saying, that take of yours is really interesting and true, because it's always going to be the underground bringing forth the new trends and the new variations. And I think that, you know, in a way, as your love for the underground remains, the good thing is that, what's next for Mr. Orin?
I'm currently finishing just putting an Afronaught album to bed. We've got the Dubs in the Attic album coming up for next year. We're just finishing off now. Got a couple of jazz projects, a couple of broken beat things as well. So,
beautiful.
Trying something a bit different.
Excited about that.
Yeah, I am as well, because I've never worked. I'm working with different sort of time signatures. I've never really done that before. I've never programmed in 5/4 or 7/8 or things like that. So it's been a challenge, and you know, I'm also sort of learning as well. Like I said, I've never done that before. I'm not really a musician. I sort of just come from party promotion and DJing, really. That was my introduction into music. So.
But would you say that does it in any way limit your creativity? I don't think so.
No, of course not. No, yeah. I mean, I remember going to my first house party when I was like, 17, 18, when it first came over here, and just been absolutely blown away with the music and just the whole thing, the fact that you're partying in some weird disused aircraft hangar, with 15,000 people that no one else in the country knows about. And no one's heard this music before. That's what I loved about it. And I've always wanted to sort of like recreate that. So, enough every time I go in the studio, it's like I don't know. It's like trying to regain that
recreate
that high,
don't-
that feeling again.
But don't you think I have a feeling that it's coming in its new form and in a new way.
Oh
It's
yeah,
coming back.
totally. Totally. Because like that was 30 years ago, and when I think about now, you know, my kids, they're like 17 now, and they've got nothing. They haven't got a clue what they've missed.
Yeah, of course.
All they know is these like little sort of like small bars and small little wacky little clubs and a crappy sound system. And
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, but it's changing though. I feel like it's changing.
It's-
Slowly.
yeah.
Like sound bars and stuff. They're trying to really elevate their sound, the sonic experience.
There is some big super clubs in that coming up and recreating that. Never be the same as what we had.